Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love talking to creative people. I think art and creativity make life worth living, make the tough times better. And today I have two guests, Audrey Cefaly, she's a playwright, and Carolyn Messina, she is an actor, and they are doing a play called Alabaster in Los Angeles right now. Audrey wrote it. Carolyn is one of the stars of it. It's a story about a woman who'd been through a horrible trauma in Alabama, and a photographer from New York comes to take her picture. It's related to the trauma, and it's about their sort of interaction and relationship. And there are two goats that are also on the farm that the play is set on. And one of the goats, Weezy, actually talks like in English and everything. And that's Carolyn's character is Weezy, the talking goat. And it's just wonderful. It's got humor. It's got heart. It's about serious things. And I was so excited to have this conversation with Audrey and Carolyn. Before we get to that, though, I want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by me. I do it. I'm into it. But if you like it and you want to support it, help me pay my bills, you can do that by going to DennisAnyone.net. There is a virtual tip jar there. There's also a thing called Buy Me a Coffee where you can buy me a coffee. I always love that. The other thing you could do is become a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of shows under the Derek and Romaine banner, and for a monthly fee, you get my show early, and you get all these other great shows. So check that out at dnrstudios.com. And at my website, DennisHensley.com, you can also subscribe to my monthly newsletter. I try to send out a fun update every month with what's going on, and you can do that there. So, all right, enough of the plugs. Here now is my interview with Audrey Cefaly and Carolyn Messina from the play Alabaster. Joining me now via Zoom from Baltimore, it's playwright Audrey Cefaly, and also in Los Angeles, we've got Carolyn Messina, who is one of the stars of Audrey's play Alabaster, which is currently showing at the Fountain Theater in LA. I saw it, and I loved it, and I'm very excited to talk to you two about it, because I know you're both, Audrey, obviously you wrote it, but Carolyn, you've been involved in the show previously and in other productions and helped develop it. So I'm excited about this combo. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So last weekend, I was looking at what am I going to do Saturday, and I saw this play, and I had an opportunity to go, and it was like I had some other friends that were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And long story short, I'm like, "There's this play about lesbians and goats. Do you want to go?" And we ended up with 6 people. So lesbians and goats it's a strong selling point, I think, having the goats. So Audrey, as the playwright, how would you describe the show to someone that didn't know anything about it?
Oh, it's a darkly Southern tale about a woman who survived an Alabama tornado, and she and her goats live to tell the tale, I guess.
I love it.
If that gives you a nutshell of it, I guess.
I love it. And Carolyn, you play one of the goats, Weezy, a talking goat.
Yes.
And you open the show, and you just sort of set the scene in a way, and as an audience member, I'm like, we're in good hands. There's something about you as a performer and as that character, they're just like, oh, okay, I get this. I'm on board. Audrey, can you talk about Carolyn in this role and why you thought that was a good fit? And I know you guys go back a ways, so why was this?
I didn't give her much of a choice.
Really? That's how it works?
Well, first of all, Carolyn and I we go way back.
Yeah.
We were acting partners back in high school, and our partnership is legendary.
That's amazing.
And,
in competitions, like, because I used to do speech competitions and there would be duo acting. Was it that kind of partner, you mean?
In a little bit in high school, but more after we graduated high school and got out into the world, we would put shows together and go compete in New York. We won the Samuel French Festival. We won the Strawberry One Act Festival. I would bring her down, like for the world premiere of Maytag Virgin. I was directing that. I brought her down for to assistant direct for that and dramaturg for that. And then when the show went to Alabama, the Alabama premiere, she played the lead in that. And then when this play, Alabaster, was in its infancy, of course, she was part of that dramaturgically. We would, for a long time, I didn't understand necessarily the nature of our relationship, but that I would bring her ideas and pitch ideas to her, and we would just riff for hours. And then over the years, I began to understand that, like, she really functions not only as my muse, but in kind of anointed dramaturgical capacity for these plays. And so, but I would tell people, directors, look, she's not just my dramaturg, she's a killer. And so I
love
put her
that.
up in Los Angeles. I was like, y'all really need to think about Carolyn. You really need to think about Carolyn, because she originated the role at Florida Rep, and just brought the house down. And I was like, she's from the region. She's of the region. Nobody knows the play better than her. She knows the play even better than I do.
Right.
And so that's how she was cast in this role. Was I put her up for it, knowing, look, they typically want to try and cast local. And I applaud any theater that wants to keep things local. First of all, it's a practical decision, but also because, hire your local actors.
Right.
So I try to get her in the room with me as often as I can. And I always tell directors to look to her first, because she just knows the material so well. And there's a part in every one of my plays for her.
I love it.
If she wants it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I was picking up in those opening moments. Like, oh, I get this. I feel this. We're in good hands, Carolyn, how would you describe the role that you play in these plays that Audrey writes?
Yeah, well, she always writes it best. She just said it best, probably. The riff is definitely something that we do. Audrey has a tendency to, from the get-go, I think, you probably said this, is there's usually an image. There's a starting point. There's an image that'll come to her, a burning letter, two women in a boat, an oar, a woman naked on a bed with scars, another woman in the room. Why is this? Why is that? And from there, we jam. Like, I didn't know dramaturgy per se. I still probably don't. I think we all have a difficult time even describing what that is. But I kind of liken it to part researcher, part editor, maybe part muse, definitely in our instance, collaborator. And so she comes with these great ideas, and we get to talking about them. And the next thing you know, I'm doing a deep dive into, research, and then we'll come back together, and she'll go off and write, and then we'll come back together. So I don't know. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, it did.
I think
it did. There's something, that you bring something to it that just feels very lived in and very like real and connected to the place as well.
Great.
In addition to the goat that you play, Weezy, there's another goat, the mother goat, but then there's two women at the heart of the story. Alice and June. And June is in Alabama. She's been through this horrible ordeal. And Alice is a New York photographer that comes to shoot her for a project. These two women, to me, when I thought about the play, one of the themes I took away is, what's it like to move on, to try to keep going after something so horrible? Like was that a theme that you were interested in exploring? Like, how do we keep going? How do you?
It's a theme I'm always exploring.
Right.
It's my middle name.
Whatever that thing is. Yeah.
I traffic in grief. I used to say that I trafficked in love stories of all kinds.
Right.
And now I know specifically it's about grief. I come from therapists and teachers. So my whole life, at every, opportunity, we're talking about our problems out loud, where we're trying to figure out, like, what was that trauma about? It wasn't a family where we would just kind of sweep things under the rug and not talk about them. We would talk about our feelings. And so I'm very comfortable talking about feelings. I'm very comfortable talking about the harder topics, and having had a couple of really difficult, painful, very painful deaths in my own family, and being a caretaker myself to a sick husband for so many years, and also being in situations where I was grieving not the loss of something or someone in particular, not the loss of someone in particular, but the loss of my own identity as I was navigating just my daily, I'm sorry, I just thought of a Radiohead song, No
That's okay.
Surprises, Please, where he talks about, like, look, I'll take a carbon monoxide landscape, and no surprises, please. Like, just give me anything but the existence that I have right now, which is this sort of reckless apathy of being in a dead-end job, a dead-end relationship, where you just don't recognize yourself anymore. And I think that particular type of grief is a thing that has fueled so many of my narratives, but also the grief of what it's like to lose someone or lose. Let me step back for a second. When we lose something in life, right? Grief says to us, I'm an opportunity for self-love and self-care, because now that you don't have that thing, you need to take stock of what's really important to you, who you are now without that thing. How do you identify now that you no longer are enmeshed and entangled with the thing or the place or the moment that you're stepping out of?
Right.
And I am intensely fascinated by how people reclaim themselves and actually forge new identities in the wake of so much tragedy. And every one of my plays tries to answer that question from a different point of view, a different facet.
Right.
And that is what Alabaster at its core is about, is you have all these characters who are dealing with the worst kind of tragedy you can imagine, right? How does a woman who loses her entire family in a horrific natural tragedy, how does she move on from that when that's all she's ever known? She's so stunted. June is so stunted in life that she's never even really experienced anything outside of the world that she lives in. So she's doubly encumbered now with the prospect of trying to figure out what her life is supposed to be. So you enter this world with this character of June, where she's visited by this really kind of worldly person who's been out in the world, right? Who's lived his full life and is fully in herself and knows who she is as a human being, both professionally and personally. And she's coming into this world with this woman who lost her whole family at an age when she really didn't even know herself yet. Right. Or the world at large. And so when June has these moments of, we'll call them glitches, while this photographer is there taking pictures of her, and June will just have these glitches. She'll just now she's talking like a child. Now she's kind of talking a bit, almost flirtatiously. Now she's completely out of her mind. And we go, what is up with this chick? What is up with her? And we understand by degrees over the course of the play that it is stunted growth, probably also but from living in a sort of pure, and I don't want to say puritanical existence, although I just did, more like her father was, a preacher, right? And so what is that like, growing up on a farm in Alabama with the preacher daddy, not a whole lot of worldly experience, and not to diminish that lifestyle at all. Carolyn and I work very hard to elevate and exalt the existences of regular, ordinary, working class people. Right. It's my world. But certainly she kind of freaks out a little bit when this new person comes. Yeah. For all the reasons, right? Yeah. And
the irony, there's always a contradiction in all of her characters. The irony of June is that she is in so many ways stunted, or there's this what do you call it, arrested development of sorts, not fully explored parts of her. And yet she's also the smartest person in the room, the funniest person in the room, the most, call it like it is, tell it like it is. And, so you got this layer of no nonsense, no bullshit.
Right.
Don't mess with me. With, oops, cover that up. I'm not going to show the vulnerability. Vulnerability. We're there now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And June took a step to get this photographer there. It wasn't like it just happened. Like so there's some part of her that wants to change, to grow, or to get out of this place that she's in. I read your other play, The Gulf, and really enjoyed reading it. And also, it's two women in a boat. How was that staged? How did you do? I was like, they're fishing in a boat. Gets thrown over the boat. Like, I don't know, theater magic, I suppose. But in both of them, what they resonated with each other for me was that one person was a little more open to the future, a little more like looking to the future, and one person was kind of stuck. And it was that conflict. And I related to that at times in my life. I remember somebody that I could have loved deeply, and I felt like, oh, they don't go for it. And I think that's a thing. I think that's going to be a thing if we're a couple. Any thoughts about that idea?
You just described so many of the character dynamics that I go for in my plays. There's always someone who knows there's always a character that's stuck in the shit.
Right.
And writers out there, I'm speaking to you. Okay. Aspiring playwright.
Yes.
Start with a character who is utterly stuck. Okay. And then there's someone else who's like, I noticed that you're stuck here. No, I'm not stuck. Oh, really? Well, it sure as hell looks like you're just a little bit stuck.
Right.
Maybe, can we just admit you're a little bit stuck?
Right.
Well, I might be a little bit stuck, but this is how I'm going to do things.
Right.
Okay. Well, you do you.
Right.
And, but this other character, typically is a bit, I don't want to say wiser, but they're more able to see either the way through, where the door is. The door is right over there. You just walk towards that door. Just put your hand on the handle, and the stuck character's like, no, I'm not ready yet. Okay, well, maybe just when you get ready.
Right.
There's the door over there. And in relationships, certainly in life, when we're paired with someone who, when you have that dynamic in real life, it's incredibly difficult because here's this go-getter and here's this, stuck person. Yeah. And that's incredibly hard to navigate in IRL,
Yeah.
So it makes sense that my doorbell is ringing. Just ignore that.
Oh, that's okay.
Very important from Amazon.
Exactly.
Like manila folders, something really exciting, I'm sure. So in the theater world, particularly when you're writing the two-hander, and this is not a two-hander, The Gulf is a two-hander.
Right.
But I maintain that a lot of plays that don't look like two-handers are two-handers because if you break it down, there's so many scenes just between two characters. And what are you going to do about that other character, right? So anyway,
I think in Alabaster
play. Go ahead, Carolyn. You jump in.
Well, I think in Alabaster too, there's something interesting about you have the character of June on this farm, dealing with everything, all the trauma that she's dealing with. You have this character Alice, worldly, experienced, firm in who she is, owning who she is, out and proud, if you will, and yet it is in Alice showing June that door. Hey, there's that door. You can get out of this. It also exposes Alice's vulnerabilities and gives her the permission to open up as well.
Yeah, she has her own stuff.
It's a little different than some of the others that Audrey had written. Maybe it's almost like every time there's a new play, we get a little bit deeper kind of thing. But Alabaster's a little different in that.
Yeah.
In that they both have a measure of stuck. I guess all characters do in a way, but they both have a measure of stuck, but it's when in the one going, no, I'm going to keep pushing this. I'm going to keep pushing this. You've got to get out here. And as those stakes amp up, then also, oh shit, I got to deal with this too.
Right.
And now I'm able to open up to you. And now I'm beginning to heal a little more too. And now what are we going to do together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some moments that seem to flash back to the tornado or to sort of evoke that. They are so brilliantly staged in this production. It's like the special effects. I don't know. It was genuinely scary. These projections and stuff like that. Yeah. Can you talk about that? Because I think in the theater, we're used to special effects in movies, but sometimes in the theater when you're like, oh, this whole space just transformed and I am freaked out. Yeah. Can you just talk about that, Carolyn, from your point of view as an actor, seeing that unfold around you?
Yeah, it is, for one, so much fun. I think, well, like going back to talking about the boat in the Gulf, designers love Audrey plays because, I've heard her say it, we've been, it's like goats, what? Boat, what? And she's like, they'll figure it out. Right. And in truth, they do. Like, they're so psyched to try to figure that out. Like, how are we going to do this on a stage? How is this storm? Yeah. How are we going to do this? Right. And it is written as, in the script of Alabaster, it is written that, encouraging the use of projections, encouraging, these things are kind of baked into the script, but allowing, depending on whatever the budget is or whatever your space is, to flex and make it your own. Like it's not necessary, but wow, what they've done with it here. And the same with, Florida Rep. I was really in the original world premiere. They had, like, wind was rushing through the theater. Things were blowing underneath. And, so it's so fun to see different designers take it on in their own way. And that's a gift to get to do this again and get to watch them in this space, a very different space from, and we saw several of the productions across the country, when it was on the Rolling World Premiere, because it was at 11. I mean, it was like a record breaking 11 world premieres going on in the space of, is it a year, Odd, or is it 2? Right. It was part of a program, and I was reading about it. The new play,
the National
New Play Network.
New Play Network has a Rolling World Premiere. The National NNPN is known for many things, but one of their, maybe even their flagship program, is the Rolling World Premiere program, where theaters will form an alliance. They will call each other and say, would you like to form an alliance with me?
I love it. Just like Survivor.
and do this wild play. Yeah. And it's a little bit obvious. It's a little more intricate than that, but it's the idea that if you all work together in your different cities and share intel and, resources, with the foundational underpinnings of the NNP network itself, that the play will be cheaper to produce overall, easier to produce overall. And you'll have this sort of wonderful, train of publicity ahead of ushering in all the different shows, and it'll be easier to market. Yeah. So I was very proud. We staged the reading at a showcase. What is it? 5 years ago now, Carolyn, or 6?
It was 2019
in Sacramento, California, at B Street Theater. We did a showcase there of the play, and it blew the roof off of the building. And Steve Yockey.
That's right.
Yeah, Raymond was there. Raymond Caldwell
was there, and Stephen Sachs they were both there.
Yes, they were both there. And then Steve Yockey comes up to me after the show and says, everyone in this building is going to want to do that play. And he was right.
That's so cool.
And yeah.
So when it's part of this
wild time,
I know when it's part of this program, they're individual productions. It's not like a touring show that goes to. It's everyone's doing the same.
It's not a tour.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you? Do you go to all of them, or do you pop in?
There
should be a party for you at every one. There should be a party.
Agreed.
There should be per diem. I think a nice hotel. Come on.
Well, if I'm there, there's definitely going to be a party.
Thank you.
I can't think of one that I didn't go to.
Yeah.
There were the one in Sacramento, 2 in Texas, Florida, Chicago, Cincinnati, Salt Lake. I didn't go to Salt Lake because that was right when the pandemic started.
That's right.
Actually, it was on stage at No Theater. They had one performance, and then the world shut down, and so they snuck in a live recording of the show right before they ixnayed on the Theater A, and I was able to see that production, a live recording of that production, and then the next production during pandemic times. You know, what's it like, Audrey, to have a Rolling World Premiere during a pandemic? I'll tell you. Salt Lake Acting Company did theirs. They did their production completely for the digital age. They cast it and they performed each in their own homes.
Wow.
The designers created backdrops that sent them to each of the characters' houses so that they had something behind them, like an entire world behind them from like their own
green screen.
It was kind of green screeny.
Wow. We all did that stuff. We all did all of that stuff.
Right. Remember?
I know.
And so that was astonishing to me.
Yeah.
What Salt Lake was able to pull off, that was astonishing to me. The quality of the production was so strong, and it really showed. Up until that point, during the early days of the pandemic, I was one of the early sort of proponents of like, look, theaters, we've got to embrace a digital age, because not just for our survival in this moment, but for the long term. Because there's so many shut-ins right now that want to see theater and can't. But that's always been the case. A pandemic didn't create that scenario.
Right.
Don't you want your grandmother who's in the nursing home to see the show that you were just in? Wouldn't it be great if there was always a way to share the show that you're in or whatever with anyone that you love across the globe, so that they don't have the hardship of travel? You know, classrooms being able to show live theater or pre-recorded live theater productions in the classroom. Wouldn't that be fantastic if you had a play that was really built, you know, for younger audiences to be able to do that? And I think that one of the things that has held us back, I won't talk about all the legal reasons and and union reasons and SAG reasons and all the unions. There are restrictions and rules in place to protect our artists, and I don't ever want to take that from them.
Right.
Those are important, but to the degree that you can, you know, theaters really were sort of dragged kicking and screaming into the digital age, and some of them took the ball and ran with it, and some of them were like, this is just a necessity right now.
Yeah, this is a phase. We're gonna get over it. Yeah. Yeah.
But it fundamentally transformed the way that we do theater around the globe. And I maintain that we can still take it a step further and find a way to bring our audiences back digitally. Yeah. There's just so many people that are fearful of getting out to the theater still. And frankly, we lost a lot of our subscribers. Yeah, we were losing them anyway, right. And then we really lost them.
I know, it makes me sad because I love theater so much. All the different productions. This is a story about two women. It becomes a love story. How did it play in different parts of the country? Like I was raised Mormon, so when I hear Salt Lake, I think, oh, interesting. But I bet it plays differently in different places. Did you notice anything about that, or did it just depend on the production?
I didn't notice that audiences responded to the intimacy any differently from place to place. But Carolyn maybe can talk specifically about this production because she's in it and also in Florida. She's probably best to talk about that. But what I'll say first is that I do bake into the script specific notes saying, look, to the degree, I was like, look, there's going to be some intimacy here.
Right.
And I knew that it was going on this journey and it was going to be done at all these theaters. Probably if I didn't know that, I might not have had the forethought to do this. But not everybody knows. Not every playwright is blessed with the understanding that their play is about to be done at 11 theaters. Like that doesn't happen to people.
Right.
But I knew
so cool.
it, and so I said to myself, I wanted every single theater in the role to be clear on one thing, which is that look, I have some intimacy here between these two women, and I don't want to prescribe how or to the degree that you express this in your show at your theater.
Right.
Because I don't know your production and I don't know your theater.
Right.
But what I do know is that if there is to be anything, the only thing I stipulated was, look, your audience is better than anybody. You can take this as far as you want to in terms of the sensuality in this play.
Right.
You can go bonkers. The only thing I ask is that if you do go there, that June be the one that makes the first move, because obviously she's in a position where she has to, she's in a position where she would have to sort of either offer consent or be the first to make a move.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want there to be a situation where it looked like there was a predatory situation.
Right.
Or someone crossing the line with the client. And I even actually expressly say that in the first act of the play. Alice, this photographer, she says, look, I need to be careful here. I don't want to get too close. Well, what happens if you get too close, Alice? Is that a thing? And she says, have you really never crossed the line with a client before? And that just kind of hangs in the air. So I say it out loud as a bit of foreshadowing, but also to just ask the question, has she ever crossed the line with a client before? And she's like, no, that's not a thing that I do.
Yeah.
Carolyn, do you want to speak to the reception or did you have something to add there?
Well, no. I think that I did notice working with the different theaters, various questions that they would have were different. When I worked as dramaturgically, some productions would get stuck on different issues, different timelines, different, so there was that. But as far as reception, I would say that it was always received. The message was clear. The audiences responded. We used to have people stop us on the street, and it's very different being here in LA.
Right.
We're not living above the theater like we did at Florida Rep. You live above the theater. You're in this historic downtown area. People are walking, very neighborhood community. And so people would stop us on the street and need to tell us their story and ask for a hug.
Wow.
Like, sincerely.
Wow.
I'd be out eating guacamole and chips and someone would go, oh my God, I saw Alabaster last week. Can I tell you about this? And like really invested, fully invested. People telling us their life stories, telling us grief stories. I just lost my mother. I'm going into cancer treatment. I needed this.
Yeah.
They went on that journey with us. And so in LA, it's a little different. Everything's urban and we're not living right there. And so we're, not having that same, but you come out of it when we walk out the door and strangers are some people are visibly sobbing and very moved. It's provocative, and I think it's provocative anywhere that it plays.
Yeah. Audrey, you in the Gulf and also in this play, it's a love story between two women. Is there a reason that you wanted to write the love story between two women as opposed to a heterosexual relationship, or is it just that these are the characters that kind of spoke to you in this moment?
In both cases, the characters told me who they needed to be.
Interesting.
I always start with a provocative image in my head. As a starting point. With the Gulf, it was like I'm seeing. It's almost like I'm a psychic. Like
it's cool. I love this.
I'm seeing a lady, and I'm seeing I'm seeing a goat. It's a bit like that. Like I always want to know in my for just to energize me that there's something exciting happening on stage that I really either don't get to see ever. Or that I've never seen. And with the Gulf, it's like I've never seen two women in a boat on stage. And I would ask, everyone invisible in the room, have you? And all the invisible people in the room would say, no, I've never seen that. And so with the Gulf, so I say, okay, all right, great. That's a great starting point. Two women in a boat. Well, why are they in a boat? Well, I don't know, but one of them just pushed the other one out of the boat. Why did they do that? So I will begin writing backwards from there in order to justify an exciting moment. So I'll say, okay, well, I know for sure somebody gets pushed out of a boat. Is it rage? Is it anger? Is there betrayal? Did somebody steal some money? Is this a drug deal?
Are they lovers? Is this a lovers thing?
Are they lovers?
Yes.
Are they lovers? So I quickly start ruling out all the stuff that doesn't speak to me or isn't interesting to me. And with the Gulf, I was like, oh shit, this is passion. Some kind of betrayal has occurred, right? And that's when I realized it was a story about these two women in a relationship, and it just came to me very organically. And with Alabaster, the same thing happened. I was like, I'm seeing a woman sitting on a bed naked. She's covered in scars, and someone else is there. Who is this other person? I was like, a naked woman on a bed. It's not a man. I don't think it's a man, right? Yeah. That's just, I've seen that. I'm not interested in that. There's someone there, and I think it's a woman, and I think this woman is taking her picture for some reason.
Wow.
And then I was like, why would there be another woman taking pictures of this woman? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't think she's local. I don't think she's from the sticks like June is. I think she's from somewhere else. But where is she from? So this idea of a photographer, this Annie Leibovitz type, sort of came to me. She's down there for some reason. And I realized, maybe she's doing a series of photo shoots with scarred women, specifically scarred women across the country. And that made sense to me. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, there might, maybe it's a multimedia installation, and there's going to be some video, as you do when you go to galleries these days. It's not just pictures on a wall. There's always this other stuff. Just go to a David Hockney exhibit and you'll see it's always this sort of multimedia experience. So I thought, well, maybe she's capturing video, and maybe she's capturing some audio recording as well. And so she's sitting there with all this equipment, and that's a very sexy setup. Yeah. You are being recorded. You are being viewed. You are a piece of art right now, and someone is absorbing you and looking at you and recording you and capturing you. And the word capture comes up a couple of times in the play, right? That was very exciting to me. And it wouldn't have been exciting if it had been a man. It would have been weird in a weird way. It would have been predictable. It would have been, I've seen that. What year is it? Right. This isn't 2025. This is something else. Right. And so they come to me just quite organically. I really do love the idea that there are queer women in my plays, and I have women come up to me all the time and they say, we don't get to see plays like this of queer women just existing. And so I just keep writing them. I find it to be beautiful. Yeah. And energizing for me, interesting. In the case of Alabaster, you get the idea that there are so many scarred women, who have been through hell and back in the world. And so really, Alabaster sort of became this beautiful sort of celebration of women who have been through hell and back.
Yeah, overcoming something and keep continuing on. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not what I set out to write, but that's what it's become. Yeah.
I also love the culture clash between the sophisticated New Yorker and the woman from Alabama, and those actors really brought that to life. I want to mention their names. Virginia Newcomb plays June, and Erin Panetta. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Yeah.
Is Alice, but they do have that. She felt like a New York artsy, I work in magazines, so I know those, like she had that feeling. And my lesbian friend that came with me loved she was all about it. So, I want to talk about Weezy, your character, Carolyn, a goat. Yeah. Dumb question, but maybe there's a story. Did you research goats at all? Did you think about what it means to be a goat?
Oh my Lord, God, yes. And what a gift, by the way. And while we're naming names, Laura Gardner, who plays Spiv.
Yes, mom goat,
the ultimate queen, the ultimate Gandalf in a way, or silent Gandalf. Yes, did I? It started as golly, Lord, that's a whole other podcast, babe. It started from a practical, we were even talking about this the other day because we never don't talk about all of it over and over again. But it started as baseline, correct me if I'm wrong, but baseline, goats. Okay. Farm animal, right? Farm animals, things milling about, whatever it is. And it started as goats. And at one point, Audrey was like, yeah, well, it could be real goats. And I was like, no. And then she was like, well, maybe it could be puppet goats. No. Oh my God. No, please. No.
But they were in the play beginning. Started as a two-hander. And I said, it was just June and Alice.
Right. So,
and then over the course of a year, so the goats were like, we have, we're going to say we've got shit to say. And I was like, no, you're going to be played by puppets.
Right. And the goats won.
Right. And they were like, no.
I was like, Carolyn, can we really have a talking goat in this? And here you're like, let me tell you all the reasons why.
So you lobbied for the talking goat.
I knew that June needed a support animal. June needed a support animal, and at that time it was a non-speaking goat. Okay.
Yeah.
And I said she needs a support animal. It has to be, big enough to carry some shit, but small enough that it can crawl into bed with her. What do we think of goats?
Yeah.
Carolyn,
right.
Now you
That's
go.
Right. Yeah.
So that's when you start researching goats.
And it just so happened. Goats can take care. They're pretty self-sufficient.
Right.
They can pretty much go off and do their thing and eat whatever off the land and find a little bit of water. But they're smart. They're trainable. It was right at this moment where goat yoga was, coming into.
I've been wanting to do it and I never have. Yeah.
They truly are trained to put you like a support animal, to put you in a state of being. Like they absorb what you're putting out and take what you're putting out. And so that just leads me, any of these kind of things, it just led me down so many rabbit holes. I dig the China kind of stuff.
I love that you go all the way there.
At one point,
dramaturgically,
where Audrey said, maybe we're talking about yoga. We're talking about June, this support animal. She's taking the pain away. She's allowing this. She's like a kidney. Well, goats have 4 stomachs.
Goats have 4 stomachs?
They have 4 stomachs.
Wow.
That do different little things, right? So, okay. So literal and metaphorically. Well, I can put this pain here. I can take this from you. I've got this idea. They're sure-footed. They're stubborn. We've got this bickering, almost sibling thing, love connection between them. And at one point then it became, and I was looking at biblical terms, mythology,
So you can see how all of this incredible wealth of understanding and curiosity on Carolyn's part would fuel a performance like that. She's just extraordinary in the role. She's all the things, she's up there, and I marvel at her choices, the way she's researched how goats actually, of course she does the basics, like how does a goat actually eat couscous with a spork from a plastic container. Well, we don't know. She had to invent that, but how they talk non-verbally, how they talk in their bahs and things. And she and Laura really had to, create that world. And that is the case in every production, is how do these two goats communicate? How do they walk through this world? But in particular, the character of Weezy, because Weezy is, we understand even from the very moment that she steps foot on the stage that she says, I'm a goat and I'm aware that I'm a goat. I have awareness. I have awareness. And so that's very disarming for an audience. They don't have to wonder, who is this person and why are they speaking to me? Okay, all right, it's not a person, it's a goat, and this goat is talking to me, and this goat is going to tell me things about what how I'm supposed to understand this material. And so I just love the way that she navigates that space. She has full command of the stage, and she's here, now she's there, and now she's talking to the audience, and now she's talking subliminally to a character, and now she's talking actually to another character. And it is just it is a role of a lifetime. And I'm just enamored, floored, really obsessed, as I say, with what Carolyn is able to do with it.
I think what's cool about Weezy is that, well, thank you, Audrey. Thank you. Yes, thank you. But what I think is yes, it's the role of a lifetime. I think all of her roles are roles of a lifetime. These women that, we get to do things that is just incredible. But what's so great about Weezy is that she refuses, the more I talk to different people or different productions or doing whatever, or even for myself, I'm still making discoveries. I did this in Florida and that was genius, amazing. We left a crater in South Florida, the team.
I love it.
Real artists, our bib, Sarah Morrissey did the art as well. She's a folk artist. Our June, Rachel Bertram Powers is from Alabama as well, just like Virginia's from, not originally, but Virginia grew up, so basically from Alabama. Our Dana Brooke, it runs, parallel with Aaron and their big resume and incredible gift. And so we left a crater down there and we're living a different one. Like I'm learning all kinds of new things during this production. It's nuts. Weezy will not be put into a box.
She will not. And when a lot of acting classes and things, they always talk about what's your motivation? What do you want? What does Weezy want? What does this goat want? But there's a moment in the play that I related to her so much where she was like, I'm tired of keeping everybody's shit together. I'm paraphrasing, but there's a moment when she's fed up with being the glue that's keeping this whole fucking ship afloat. And boy, I relate to her in that moment.
Which is the plight of so many people on this planet. There's so many of us who are just sick to death of being the fixer. And we want some relief from that. And I think that she is singing the I don't want to call it a song, maybe the eulogy. She's singing, the song of so many people. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, it's a gift. Weezy is also, Weezy's a gift to June and Alice, and that she facilitates or helps facilitate them seeing each other, and by the nature of being seen by another, become seen themselves. And Weezy is also gifting to Bib and their relationship, Bib gifting to Weezy, that care, that nurturing, and that seeing someone into the way that they need to go on their way.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to go too, I don't want to be the, spoiler alert, whatever.
Right.
But then Weezy also is able to, via the relationship with the audience, give the gift of all of the audience members as caregivers and as running at capacity. And good God, to be in LA at this moment in time.
Yeah.
And with all of, gracious, we had our first read through and the fires began, but it's a way for us to go, for Weezy to say, I also see you, and I know too that you carry this load, and I know too that it's okay to feel that. It's okay to witness. We're all witness here.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, and give what you can, and know too that it's all right once you've given that, to walk away and be okay and be yourself and have your journey.
Yeah, Weezy felt my pain. Weezy felt my pain or whatever. Yeah, I do. There is a connection there. These are very serious themes that we're talking about, but this play is very funny. Your writing is very funny. There's these meta things that you do where there's a prop and the character literally says, oh, this is going to come up later in a meaningful moment. Like they kind of break the illusion of the reality and acknowledge that, oh, this is significant. And then when that happens, it is the emotion. You get the emotional moment of what it actually signifies, but also it's funny because of the setup. Talk about the use of humor in the play and the language, like well shit, like that kind of like funny way of talking and using profanity or whatever. It's very funny, your show. And I'm curious, Carolyn, the laughter and what that feels like as it's happening, and also just Audrey, the use of humor and why you try to do that.
Well, I'm very serious about my comedy.
I like it. That might be the headline of this episode. I always pick a quote.
I mean it.
Yeah.
I will, with Carolyn with me every step of the way. She and I have had days long, and I'm not exaggerating, days long episodes, we'll call them episodes, where we nitpick a joke to death because we want it to be just right. And I will say, well, the actor's just not getting it. She's like, I'm not going to let you delete that line just because an actor doesn't get it. And I was like, okay, but wouldn't it be, okay, but hear me out. There's all this, but hear me out.
Right.
We will get on the phone for hours talking about whether this syllable is funnier if it's here or if we move it over 3 millimeters.
Right. It's a rhythm thing.
It is a rhythm thing. And even in recent productions that Carolyn has been a part of, she'll say, I'm here, I'm boots on the ground, I'm in it, and I see things a little differently now. I really think we need to cut that. And so she and I have threads. We're famous for this. We have threads, back and forth email threads where we're like, okay, this is the thread for the next edition of Alabaster. Well, my publisher is going to kill me because I'm like, I cannot go back to them now with a third edition of Alabaster, but it sure looks like I'm going to need to, because there are things that need clarifying. There are some jokes relevant now since the new administration that have worked their way in there. The whole thing about the Gulf of Dipshit, Alabama was pre-Gulf of America.
Yeah.
Right. The whole thing. What was the other one that we added in?
We added in the spork thing.
The spork thing was a thing that
spork was there, but
spork
there was a tweak.
The mention of the word spork has always been there, but I tweaked it, for current times. And so I'm always updating the comedy too, right? I'm thinking of.
But worldview, your comedy, that lift is the grace that we need.
So, yeah. So
to
that's
get through this stuff
too. I'm not going to take credit for a technique that many storytellers use, which is you've got to give your audience a break. Right. I don't want to sit there and be all in my sads and all in my feelings and all that, even though I'm perfectly happy being there. A lot of people are not.
Right.
So I want to make them laugh, because I feel like laughter and pathos and sadness They all come from the same place. And if you can get an audience laughing, they will follow you anywhere.
That's amazing.
That's because it's disarming. They trust you now because you're like, oh, this person is ready to meet me where I am. I'm ready to laugh. I'm not ready to think deep thoughts. This person is willing to give me a little bit, of a break tonight. Go ahead, Carolyn.
And it's human too, don't you think when some of our most rage-filled moments and our most tragic, sad moments, out of that just naturally comes some of the funniest things that we ever say.
Why we laugh at funerals,
I mean, my God.
Yeah.
I'm a
funerals are hilarious.
Threat. Total worst, because you're just at your end. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's why sometimes you'll be in the middle of you could be in a Shakespearean tragedy and somebody's going to laugh at some point. They just are.
Yeah.
They're going to laugh at the worst thing because
that's right.
It's the way that they handle it. It's the way that, some
that's
people
what we
have
forget.
To. While we cry when we laugh, and we laugh when we cry.
They're close. Yeah.
We know that the audience is going to laugh whether you have asked them to or not.
Yeah.
So you need to use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Right. If you set out to write the comedy, you're not going to get it. It just has to be writing to write the story, and the jokes write themselves. If you will just distill the narrative, right, and be clean and crystalline with your intention and your lines, a lot of the jokes write themselves because. And I'm not talking about all the extra stuff. All that stuff gets piled on, and we were like, oh, we can add a bit here and we can add a bit there. Well, does it push the narrative? It does not. In the case of Alabaster, someone says, who would you rather, Marianne or Ginger? Well, okay, that doesn't further the story. Does it contextualize a little bit, like what they're into? Maybe.
Well, it does, because we all know.
If I take it out,
yeah,
right.
That's right.
If I take it out, we still have a story.
Right.
And that's the honest truth. If I take out the bit about Marianne or Ginger, it's a little less sexy, but the audience isn't going to know that I took it out. Yeah. Right. But it's there and it's funny and it offers a banter and release.
Yeah.
So the idea is you've got to really be honest with yourself as a writer and distill things so that you have opportunities for comedy.
Yeah.
If you are overwriting every single sentence and going on and on, and draining the life out of every line with your exacting syllables, there will be no room for comedy. Hear me now. There will be no room for comedy.
Yeah.
The audience will be like, oh, with all the words. Would you stop with all the words? And I'm not saying that characters don't go on and rant. That's a very different thing. That's not what I'm speaking of.
Right.
I'm talking about dialogue that is so dense and thicketed that you cannot breathe. You can't find the humor because you've given the audience no room in which to find it.
Yeah. Carolyn, what's it like to perform this show now? Because when we saw the show, the artistic director came out and gave a very rousing curtain speech up front about like, we're here, we're artists, we're going to do this, we're going to step up. Like, what's it like to perform this show now in LA? Because you don't live here. And you talked about the fires. What has it been like?
That's wild as hell now. It really is. It's wild. And it was yet another reason that I wanted to do it out here. Was to be out here. I mean, I've got a lot of friends out here, I've got connections out here, but spending time, very different. I think that, and it's strange too that right now, here we are, political climate, all this is
right.
Literal insanity happening around us.
Yeah.
I just kept getting on the phone with Audrey going, this shit is playing right into our hands. I mean, the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, there are things that were written before the pandemic.
Right.
One of the first drafts of this show, the beginning seedlings were like 2016.
Right.
We've been working on this puppy. And so stuff like that is just relevant, right? It's right now.
Right. There was a line that I felt like, oh, that feels like Trump era line. I don't know if it was added, but it felt like, I don't remember what it was. It was early in the piece, but I remember going, oh, they're setting this right now. That's what it felt like.
Right. And generally speaking, most of the time, in a setting heading, an Audrey play will go, today, now,
right. Yeah,
whatever. We actually removed the year from the date for that purpose as well.
Yeah.
Remove a lot of ages and remove those obstacles, allowing many people to play. But, so it feels, it's odd. I was talking to Raymond actually, and we were talking about how rage, we're mad right now, right? So many people were raging right now. Are people really ready to heal yet? And so that's kind of murky, scary territory to be navigating.
Yeah.
And yet, like I was saying before, when I walk out and people are visibly moved, wanting to talk more about it, we may get back to our rage afterwards. But we had a breath of release, and I feel like we had a communion while we were in there together.
Yeah, just speaking with my group of friends that came, it was a respite. Like it felt like it was like something like a couple more things I want to bring up, and then we'll wrap it up. In your bio, Carolyn, you wrote, "I strive for authenticity, audacity, and to say it all out loud," which I was like, oh, that's cool. In honor of the spirit of Cindy Owen. Who is Cindy Owen?
Oh, one of the reasons that I'm able to be here in LA and make myself quote unquote local is I'm currently in the house of Dave and Trisha Owen.
Nice.
They have given me a place that I could land. And Dave's sister Cindy, who is no longer with us, and her wife Dorothy Shaw from Alabama. Right. They two women that have known me since I was just out of high school, who also are huge theater makers. Dorothy's we acted together as well. Right. Huge supporters of theater. Small theater in particular in Birmingham, Alabama, called Terrific New Theater. Love it. And so I knew them when I was young. I went off to New York. I lived there for about 20 years. When Audrey and I were collaborating, I introduced Audrey to them and Audrey's material to them, and the Gulf in particular kind of started that ball rolling. And Cindy was a part of the very beginning of Alabaster. They were part of, we talked with them at length about it, what we were trying to do, how we felt, who these women were. They have a love for the art as well, the folk art as well, outsider art, if you will. So Cindy, I feel like Cindy's been a part of this journey with us, the whole time. And she was very no nonsense, very much of a Weezy, just as loving and tender. We call it tender-hearted in the South, but just as loving and tender and wonderful and maternal, and just as no nonsense, no bullshit, tell it like it is. And so I feel like I carry her out there with me. I carry a lot of folks out there with me.
Exactly. There's a lot of colors to Weezy. I sometimes think about pride festivals as a gay person in places that you don't think of as cosmopolitan gay places. And maybe it's similar with arts, like you're doing the arts in places that aren't like, off Broadway or whatever. And is it different, or is there special qualities about that? Or is it you're doing your thing wherever you're doing your thing?
Is this an Audrey question or a Carolyn?
Whoever responds to that, because you write about these places like this and where you're from and do shows there, and obviously there's a theater community there.
I hope anyway that I don't only write Southern plays, but I have a canon of work set in my home state of Alabama and the Gulf Coast region, and certainly those plays resonate very strongly in the Southeast and all the places that it's played down there. Yeah. But not just there. When I go to California, when I go to Cincinnati, Texas, it's resonating there too. And regionalist playwrights, and I suppose I am one, although I'm not just a regionalist playwright, we specialize in that sort of singular style of a particular place with a capital P.
Yeah.
And I think that singularity, if you can give that to an audience, audiences have a curiosity.
Yeah.
So even though they may not understand fully the landscape or innately the world from whence the material is drawn, they can appreciate it for its singularity. And I see that appreciation. And I never have I had a moment in a different city across the country where someone was like, I just didn't get it. I just didn't get it. But there's nothing really in any of my narratives that's so inside baseball that you can't get it. But certainly if you are from that region, there will be things and appreciations that you have. And I get love notes all the time.
That's
going,
cool.
Oh my God, that's my grandmother. Yeah. That was my Mima. Like, you so totally capture that. And for them, it's value added because there's so many wonderful little, love notes to the South in my writing that I hope my homies will pick up on. Yeah. But that's the case anywhere. If I were to go and sit, and see a play set in Chicago, by a Chicago writer, there'd be so much lost on me. But I think I would, But you feel the authenticity. It feels specific, and you can connect to that, even if it's a different world than you're used to. Absolutely. Yeah.
Isn't that fun too?
Yeah.
Isn't that fun? Like, I mean, that's why we go to the theater, because it's more than, or it's real. And, there are all these, it's goats and you're a regionalist, and, we go there because it's so expansive. The theater invites us into a room as a collective group mind, to experience this sitting right next to each other with things that are live happening at us, with us, that exchange. And so we can, it's just, I don't know. It's a whole world.
It's a whole world. And that's going to get at my last question that I want to ask both of you. But there's one other thing I want to mention to Audrey. They sent me a copy of your script, the PDF for The Gulf, and I read it, and I saw the Samuel French name. And it reminds me of high school when you would get those plays from Samuel French, and you were just falling in love with theater and acting, and it was like a rush. Like, what was it like to get your play published by Samuel French? Did you have that high school drama geek moment?
I geeked the fuck out.
Because we know what the fonts look like, the colors, the size, everything, right?
I was like, is this my life? Well, my first experience with Samuel French, obviously my first experience with Samuel French was in high school. And, as you say, you get the script and
you highlight it. You highlight your script.
Beth Henley.
Yes.
Yeah, I fell in love with Beth Henley as a Southern writer, and I didn't know I would be a writer. I knew that I would be an actor my whole life, right? And so, you have those scripts, and getting a new script is always so exciting. And then when I was about 19 years old, my mother had her play Autumnalgy produced at the Humana Festival, and then at Williamstown, which was quite a coup.
Yeah.
Because she was just a nobody at that time. And her play was published by Samuel French, and I thought, oh my God, my mom is famous,
right?
And and then 20 years later, for me to have be published by the same publisher was just astonishing to me. So I have that connection. But yeah, when I got those scripts in the mail, I was just geeking out, and I cannot say enough good things about the folks at Samuel French. I'm going to always call it Samuel French. I know they're Concord now, but I will always call it Samuel French. No,
it's got to be Samuel French. Was that a person, by the way? Who is that guy? Like, do we know him?
Don't ask me that.
Oh, shoot. And I would have known the answer if you hadn't asked it.
No, yeah. I don't know the etymology.
Well, we'll let Carolyn does the research. Go run with that. Come back with a PowerPoint and a presentation. We'll wait.
Right. Yep. She's your girl.
Exactly. So your show runs through March 30th here in LA. I think everyone should try to see it if you're in LA. And the website, I think, is fountaintheater.com. And so go check that out. Here's my final question for both of you. I was looking at your resume. You're theater people. Like, it's not like, oh, Law and Order, SVU. Like, it's like you're theater artists.
Yeah.
What do you love about the theater? Why do you do what you do?
Carolyn, you want to answer first?
Oh, I knew it. Oh, yeah,
shit. I love when you say all those Weezy words.
First of all, Samuel French was an early publisher of American drama in the mid 1800s.
Thank you for bringing that up. All right.
Had to know. Find it out. We didn't want to leave people hanging.
A librarian's daughter. There you go. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Solid in illness. It's the exchange. It's the live exchange, kind of what I was touching on before. It's that energy exchange. You know, and especially in this particular piece and this production, or when you break that fourth wall, you definitely, if the audience is playing, you know, we have the text. There are just a couple of moments where I have the availability to improv. That is within Weezy's character to a certain extent, but it's ultimately that improvisation of the energy, getting to play, getting to, oh, well, you really want it today. Okay, that's great. Then let's roll with it. It's the fueling, and it's that commune. It's going to church, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to church. We all get to have this experience. We come out changed somehow. And there's the immediacy. Anything can happen, and generally does, good, bad, or indifferent, for all of us. And it is right then what happened that day and never again.
And then it's over. Can I ask you, when you're having a bad day and you show up and it's time to do the show, does it change the way, when you come out of it, are you like, okay, I'm better now? Like,
absolutely. I've had my share, and certainly we all have, you know, being here during this particular time for LA, but then also we lost our dearest mentor, our high school drama teacher, while I was out here. That was a really tough one.
Wow.
And that night happened to be a transcending moment, a performance that, you know, I don't know how it resonated with everyone else, but for me, that moment was really spectacular and special. So who knows, you know, what was out there.
Of course.
Hanging out that day in the universe. But, so absolutely. I walked in and I knew, you know, it wasn't the cliche, the show must go on. It was, she's with me and we're going to walk through it together. And we did. And so, yes, I needed it.
Yeah.
I needed it. You know, we need the theater. We need arts. We need these podcasts. We need to be able to talk about things.
Right.
It's
human, what it's like to be a person. Audrey. Connection. Yeah. Audrey, for you, why the theater?
Well, I could answer it the same way I would answer why this podcast. I come away from it feeling better. And that's what I want for anyone experiencing my work or anyone's work when they come to see the theater. I want to give them what they came for, and I want them to leave the theater feeling better. The collaborative nature of theater is such a gift to writers because we're able to imagine the impossible and then work with other humans who have the same passion for the material to see that fully realized. And you can't do that. You can't, Carolyn talked about the immediacy. It's the same way in the writer's room, right? You can't do that oftentimes with other mediums the way you can with live theater.
Yeah.
I can sit in a rehearsal room and an actor will give me an idea for something and I will say, actually, I keep that. You know, it's oftentimes when you're in film or TV or, you don't have that luxury because everybody's, they've already hardwired the script, and once you get in the room, you can't change things.
It's part of a machine.
Storyboards and shooting apparatus, everything has been built around getting a certain amount done in a day. And if you start doing that, everything is going to go, it's going to go crazy. So I love that in theater, when we're in the room together, we have that option. And not only do we have that option, we have an imperative to seize those moments of serendipity and mishaps. Anything is usable, and we try to, or at least I try to, exploit every single bit of mischief that chooses to reveal itself in the room for the greater good.
Yeah, ring it all out. That's how that beautiful moment, the Requiem for Bib, was created out of the room, out of the energy, out of creative minds, artists coming together, solving problems and exploring character. And then we found new ways with the experience that was Sarah Morrissey and Jay Parrish in that room, and Audrey went home and wrote that beautiful.
Carolyn is speaking of perhaps the most beautiful moment in Alabaster.
Oh, which one?
Which is Bib's, Weezy's mother, the mother goat Bib, when she finally transcends.
Yeah.
Well, that moment didn't exist before the world premiere. It wasn't until we got into the room and started working together that the director said, "How are we going to get from this scene to this scene?" And I said, I'll go write something. And I came back 6 hours later with some new pages.
Wow.
And everyone was crying. I made people cry that night.
That's beautiful.
And of course the actor just knew exactly what to do with it. And how do you say that, look, here's a character who speaks not a syllable in English except maybe one word. And how do you say she's maybe the most important character in the entire play because she teaches us about transcendence and the possibility. Grace, and she gives us hope. Yeah. And I can't take credit for that scene. Yeah. I'm going to give credit for that scene to the director who had a scene change conundrum. Yeah. So that, in a nutshell, is what theater is. You cannot predict how your plays are going to be received, and you can't predict how the scenes are going to end up because there's so many people needing you to work it this way or that way. And it's just this crazy mix of all these voices and all these needs coming at you. And then you end up with something. Yeah. It's and then that, magical.
So that was, it is. And it's so magical. That was that. And now here I am in LA and I got this, Laura Gardner. Hell, all I have to do is show up. I just show up and listen to
Yep, just show up.
I just show up and listen to them. Yeah. And respond. Yeah.
Well, I love what you said about giving you hope because that's the way we felt after that play. It's a rough time in the world, and to go somewhere and come out feeling lighter and not so afraid of the future is a beautiful thing. So thank you for your work, and thank you for doing this podcast. It was a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Thank you. We hijacked you a little bit. We do that.
I love it. I love it. Why does your thing work? Like, why does your thing work? Why does it work with you two?
We just...
Oh, wow. We tell the truth.
You tell the truth.
Tough love.
She keeps me honest, and I keep her guessing. And even just the other day, I was like, "Well, I remember it differently," and she's like, "Oh, I remember." And that's when I realized, oh, I knew that Carolyn had a good memory, but then I think I've realized in the past week, like she has total recall, and so I can't go around remembering things wrongly.
Yeah. She'll call you out. It's awesome.
She's going to fact check me. And so that's what you need. Yeah. That's what every writer needs. Every artist needs, a partner in crime, and every writer needs that constructive irritant that's going to keep them honest. Right. And I think that's what Carolyn is to me and maybe what I am to her. I love it. And we just have loved each other for a lifetime now.
I love that. What a beautiful story.
Thank you. Thank you, so Dennis.
Yeah, this was super fun. I may come and see the show again if I can figure out when I can come, because I would love to see it again.
Woo-hoo! All right. Okay. And bring 500 of your closest friends.
I will. I'll do my best. Thank you guys so much. This was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Audrey Cefaly and Carolyn Messina. if you're in LA, go see Alabaster. You will love it. All right, so this happened. I went to see the movie Drop Dead Gorgeous at Vidiot's last night. They had a screening on 35 millimeter, and I remember seeing that movie in the 90s when it came out, or I think it was 1999. It's a mockumentary about a small-town beauty pageant. Kristen Dunst is in it and plays sort of the ingenue, and then there's Denise Richards as her, kind of snotty rival. Kirstie Alley is the mother of Denise Richards, who runs the pageant. You've got Ellen Barkin and Allison Janney in one of her first roles. And Vidiot's happened to end up with a sort of surprise Q&A with the director, Michael Patrick Jan, and the production designer was also there who worked on the movie. It hadn't been advertised as a Q&A, but that's kind of the kind of fun things that happen sometimes. And so one of the cool things that they talked about was that, like, Allison Janney did a self-tape. She hadn't really had a lot of big parts yet, so did a self-tape and sent it in, and the director said they were having a hard time casting that character. I think her name is Loretta, like the friend of Ellen Barkin, and he said the second he saw the tape, he's like, oh, that's it. So we love Allison Janney. And he also talked about, like, the sort of theme or why he thinks the movie resonates. And I thought this was really interesting because a lot of crazy shit happens in this movie. People are dying and there's a lot of bad behavior and a lot of ludicrous stuff. And he's sort of talking about Kristen Dunst's character at the heart of the movie, who had a sort of purity and grace and decency. And he sort of said that, if you, for as crazy as life can be and for as awful as so many people in this world are, if you can approach life and those people even with some equanimity and humility, you might end up the star of your own life. And I thought that was deep and meaningful. So there that is. And so that happened. You should watch it if you can. Apparently it's not on streaming, though. You have to do physical media. So there you go. Thanks for listening. I want to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Placement Music. I'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye!